Akim. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rawchaa, Qadash. Double honors to the elder apostles of great Millstone, teacher Woodrow, and Shalom to the sincere Akim to spread his truth and sincerity. Shalom. This video is going to be some sort of response video to the video that Elder Apostle Tahar made concerning Bible and secular history, which Elder Apostle Tahar went into how the Bible talks about Antiochus Epiphanes, which was an actual historical figure. And what I want to do in this video, I want to address certain other things that are in the scriptures that happened in secular history. So that means that these things can be found in historical books. And the first thing that I actually want to address is slavery. The slavery that happened towards the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. And the one that we know the most about, which is the transatlantic slavery, which was the enslavement of the so-called Negroes from the west coast of Africa. That's actually something that took place, because it was biblical prophecy. And that can be found in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68, where it roughly paraphrasing says that the Most High should bring us into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof he spake unto us, and we would not see the land of Israel no more, and nobody will be able to redeem us from the situation that we will be in. You see, that's one of the curses that came upon our people, man. That's one of the curses by which we know and understand who the Israelites actually are. You see, and the transatlantic slavery took place, around 1619, and ended at the end of the 19th century, something around that. Well, let me say it like that. Ended so-called at the end of the 19th century, because actually with the 13th Amendment, they made a way for Jake to still be enslaved, man. For petty crimes, being put in jail and then being put to labor. But concerning prophecy, man, the transatlantic slavery, is something that took place and was spoken about in the scriptures, man. And if you go even back, way further, when Christopher Columbus, sailed to South America, man, he also enslaved the Israelites, man. But he enslaved and encountered the Northern Kingdom, man, the so-called Latinos and Indianos. So that's one of the first things that I wanted to mention in this video, how that slavery is part of secular history, but it's also a biblical prophecy. And the second thing that I want to go into is Daniel, man. Daniel, if you go into the book of Daniel, he was a captive during the Babylonian captivity, which took place around 500 BC. He receives visions and prophecies, and through the books that he wrote through the spirit and power of Yahawashi, we understand that he foretold of the empires and kingdom that would precede the Babylonian kingdom. He spoke about the Assyrians, the Babylonians. Afterwards, he spoke about the Greek Empire, the Roman Empire. Eventually, the revived Roman Empire is also being mentioned in the book of Daniel. And eventually, that goes into the time that we're in right now, where the feet are partly iron and partly clay, and it's not mingling. These rich nations, these stronger nations that are opposed towards the weaker nations, the poorer nations, they can't agree on things, man. They can't agree on certain things, so they're not able to mix. So he prophesied that around 500 BC. Meanwhile, the Greek Empire that he spoke about, occurred roughly 150 years later, man, around 350, 360 BC, with Alexander the Great, or Alexander the Creep, being the first to rule over become the first king of the Grecians. So, that's another thing that the Bible talks about that can be backed up with secular history, man. So you can go back into history and actually see that, yeah, it did happen, and the Bible just, is actually being confirmed by that, even though we don't need that. But you might have those that need such a thing. Some might have the faith of, unbelief in Thomas. You never know. And another thing that is being mentioned in the scriptures was the siege of Jerusalem around 70 AD. If you go into the book of Daniel, the 9th chapter, around the 25th verse, 26th, 27th verse, it talks about that. Let me go to it, because I can't really paraphrase it like that, but let me go into it. Let me read it. Otherwise I'm gonna mash it up, because I don't know if I can't even paraphrase it. But it says, let me start Daniel chapter 9, verse 24. 70 weeks are determined upon that people and upon the holy city to finish the transgression and make an end of sins, and to make reconciliation for iniquity, and to bring an everlasting righteousness, and to seal up the vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. So this is talking about 490 years, which that's not an actual 490 years. If you would calculate the time that it took from the time of Babylon all the way, to the appearance of Yahawashi, the Messiah, that did not take 490 years exactly, precisely. But it's a rough period of around 500 years. That this would take place, man. Yahawashi would come up on the scene, and that through him we will be able to receive forgiveness of sins. Let me see, verse 25. Know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah, the Prince, shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall even in troublous times. And this is referring to when Cyrus the Great gave us the decree to rebuild the temple, and eventually the city, and eventually the lost Ten Commandments will be brought back to our people. You can read about it in the book of Ezra and the book of Nehemiah. You see, even during that time, our enemies, our adversaries, tried to hinder us, but eventually, through the spirit of Yahawah, Bahasham, during the reign of these different kings that were ruling during that Medo-Persian Empire, which the Medo-Persian Empire is also an empire that was spoken about by Daniel. So you had the Assyrian, the Babylonian, the Medo-Persian. Eventually, Medo-Persia was overtaken by the Greeks. And Cyrus the Great is also a person that is known in history, man. But he's also being mentioned in the scriptures, man, for following certain prophecies concerning rebuilding of the temple and things like that. So there are a lot of things in the scriptures, man, that can be backed up with secular history for those that might not really have the faith by just hearing, man, but also need to see and things like that. Verse 26, and after 62 weeks shall Messiah be cut off, but not for himself. And the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city and the sanctuary, and the end thereof shall be with the flood, even unto the end of the war, desolation and interment. So if I'm correctly, the 62 weeks refer to a period of around 434 years, if I'm correct. If I'm correct, 34. I'm correct as referring to 434 years. Correct me if I'm wrong. You can do the calculation for yourself. because it's referring to spiritual weeks. So 1 week refers to 7 years. So that's 3 square is 60, 62 times 7, yeah. Correct, that's 400. Let me do a calculation, man. I hate it when I don't get it, you know, like that out of the top of my dome. Yeah, 434. So, after, you know, that period of time that is a rough time period, Yahawashi will be cut off for the nation of Israel, man, because it says not for himself, you know, but let me see, and for the people of the prince that shall come and destroy the city. So around that rough period of time, Yahawashi will be cut off for the nation of Israel, man, and the prince that shall come and shall destroy the city. If you go into the word prince, correct is the word Nagayat, but I can't look it up right now, but that goes into a captain or a commander, and that was referring to Vespasian and Titus, man. They were the ones to eventually come in with the Roman armies around 70 AD to take over Jerusalem. Eventually, you also had the war of Masada, which that ended the strongholds that we had towards the or against the Romans. You see, but these things are all written in history, man, and the Bible talks about it in a little bit cryptic way. But as it says in Amos, the 3rd chapter, man, the Most High revealed His secrets unto His servants, the prophets, which is referring, you know, starting up with El Apostahar, Kabar, Roundup, and Rawchaa, and those other apostles. You know, it starts off with them, and their teachers, of course, man, that taught them, you know, the scriptures in truth and sincerity. Then you have verse 27, and it says, "And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week, and in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease. And for the overspreading of the abomination he shall make it desolate, even to the consummation, and that the determined shall be poured upon the desolate." So around that time of 70 AD, if you go back into history, we already made certain covenants with the heathens that were basically ruling over us, man, unto whom we were subject. So we had a covenant with them as well, but because of certain things that happened around 76 AD, you know, they basically tore up the covenant, and then they started to come up against our people, man. And 70 AD is the time period of the siege of Jerusalem, man. You know, and this is all written in history, man. And even Yahawashi spoke about that in the book of Luke, 21st chapter, where you see Jerusalem compassed with armies that know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them flee to the mountains, which is referring to our people fleeing into, I wouldn't say America, but into Africa, man. You know, and that's also something that is an historical fact, because if you go into the book from Babylon to Timbuktu, it covers that part as well. Even the book of Revelation, the 12th chapter, goes into that, man. How our people fled into Africa and were nursed there for a certain time, man, until, you know, we was taken to America. You see. So yeah, it's a beautiful thing that the Most High, you know, made it possible for us to also bring out certain historical facts and back it up with the scriptures, or back the scriptures up, you know, with the historical facts, man. So yeah, the Bible, you know, and secular history, you know, can go line in line, you know, hand in hand. So the first thing that I spoke about was, you know, the slavery of our people, man, which is a biblical fact, which can be backed up by secular history. How Daniel already prophesied about, you know, the Medo-Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, and eventually the revived Roman Empire. But also how the siege of Jerusalem was prophesied, and how history also confirms that we fled into Africa, man. You know, all these things, man, are in the scriptures and can be backed up with history. You see? So yeah. yeah, these were the things that I want to bring out to the spirit. You know, my inspiration was the video of El Apostahar, in which he went into Antiochus Epiphanes to basically show you that the Bible and secular history, you know, can go hand in hand. So with that, I pray and hope that this lesson was edifying, and I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Qadash. Double honors to the Elder Apostles of Great Millstone, teaching real well, and shalom to the sincere Archeon, who spread truth and sincerity. Shalom.